The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Acuma, its board of directors, its management staff, or its members. The podcast discussion presented is conversational in nature and for general information only.
This is Acuma's On Point Podcast. On today's episode, we're sitting down with someone I've enjoyed getting to know over the years as he shares valuable insights into leadership and staying relevant within our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello, and welcome to Acuma's On Point Podcast, a series focused on sharing the stories of people who are making a positive impact in the credit union mortgage industry. I'm your host, Peter Benjamin. Today, I am joined by Andrew Harris, VP of Mortgage Development with Truity Credit Union out of one of my favorite states, Oklahoma. Andrew, my friend, how you doing today?
You're doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about being on here today and talking about, being relevant in our market and credit union movement.
No, buddy, I'm looking forward to this conversation. As I mentioned, we're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk, staying relevant, both of which are really two topics that I find that are near and dear to my heart. So, again, I've enjoyed getting to know you, sitting down with you, not just at Acme events, but, at the Oklahoma Curin. And I truly, this is going to be a great conversation. But before we get to it, as always, gotta bring the Hawk in to give us the latest and greatest happening over at Acme. So, Justin, how are you doing today? And Hawk, please tell us, what is the latest and greatest happening over at the Acuma?
Yeah.
Hey man, living. I'm living, man.
The dream. Living the dream. We gotta finish this. We gotta finish it, man.
Dude,
if you're not up to here with me, right? Like you're just gonna bring everybody else down.
Bro, come on, it's been a heck of a morning.
It's been a heck of a time, right? I mean, we just opened workshop registration last week.
I know, man.
Insanity.
This has been. I never would have imagined that 2026 was going to be this nonstop, but it's been nonstop.
I know. Everybody always asks, what's my favorite time of the year? I tell them November.
No, man. It's
that's when we get a breath.
It's that week off, at the end of the year that we don't do absolutely anything. That's it.
Yeah, this is true too. But so on that, workshop registration has officially opened. We opened last week. So if you missed out on the emails and the information coming out from us, don't worry. It's on the website. Head over. Make sure that you get registered. Come and see us. We're going to be in San Diego this year from May 12th and 13th. It's going to be an awesome event. The agenda is rock solid. I mean, I don't know what other good things I could say about it, but if you miss it, they're going to miss out. Like,
it's a good one. I
think last year people missed out on the rock, paper, scissors thing. So who knows what's up Peter's sleeve on this one. Okay.
It's on rock, paper, scissors. I talked to Skip the other day.
Yeah.
He actually, whenever he goes to an event and he does his kind of keynote, he's now using the rock, paper, scissors at the beginning of all of his keynotes to kind of get the group excited. Because, it was awesome last year. It's going to make a comeback eventually.
Yeah. I mean, I hope Skip is also saying, he saw this at the Acuma workshop.
He gave me a shout out on social media.
Yeah, we just got to make sure we're getting that too, right?
You know what'd be awesome, real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt.
What's that?
If we did it at annual. Do you imagine
in the general session room?
Can you imagine 600 people playing a rock, paper, scissors contest?
I like this idea.
That would be bananas.
Yeah. Yep. We're on to something here. Who knows? Right. See how many people we can get involved in this and get that movement going too.
I know. But still,
outside of workshop registration, our Viewpoint Regional Summit registration is open as well. So this year we're going to be in 3 different locations. We're going to be in Dallas, Texas, March 24th, 25th, St. Louis, Missouri, April 14th and 15th, and Baltimore, Maryland, April 28th and 29th. So the first one's just around the corner. I mean, we're a month out now, a little over a month away. So There's still plenty of time. Those are free for member credit unions and CUSOs. So again, taking the education, just get there. If you're close by, it's a day and a half is what it really equates down to. And you get a fun experience to go along with it. So outside of those, we have our virtual meetings happening. The next ones will be in March, because today actually is the volume base. So if you are listening to our podcast, and I'm sure you're not at the volume based meeting right now, but if you're at the volume based meeting, woo, that means you got to hear this a little bit late. And last but not least, but our webinar series and our On Point podcast are happening all year long.
Thank you very much. Every single time you talk about our San Diego event, I keep wanting to say this, but I just never do. I keep wanting to quote Ron Burgundy, Anchorman.
Yeah.
It's that quote from the movie where he's like, they named it San Diego, which of course in German means a whale's, but and I'll let you fill in the blank on what it is, but well, there you go. I just said it. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, now you've gotten it out. And
I didn't say that. I didn't say the word that makes it funny, but people can go feel free to look up that quote from Anchorman's first one. But yeah, anyways, Justin, thank you.
Yeah, nice. It was my pleasure.
You could tell the mood I'm in this morning.
It's all right. We're bringing that level of just living the dream back up, right?
Living. I'm a little punchy this morning. So, all right. So thank you very much, Andrew, my friend. All right. So, I as I mentioned, we're going to dive into leadership. We're going to dive into staying relevant. Love that conversation. But as always, before we get to it, we have to stay true to the podcast. And the way we stay true to this podcast is going back to our roots and really sharing what makes us us. So to that point, I always start with the first question, and I'm going to keep doing it. So Andrew, do me a favor. Before we start talking about, leadership, and before we start talking about staying relevant, please share with the group, who is Andrew Harris?
Peter, I worked for Truity Credit Union for 33 years. I started as a part-time teller, moved through the ranks of being a loan processor, did a little bit of consumer lending, had the opportunity to go up to our collections department and just kind of move around and learn lending and learn, what makes us function as a credit union. And I've been here for 33 years. I grew up here at the credit union. Service was not a strategy when I began work here. It was a way of life. From an early age, early career, I learned that members are not just accounts on the screen. They're people who trust us with some of the most important parts of their life. Their deposits, their mortgages. That mindset kind of followed me throughout my career, and then further grounded me when I became a certified John Maxwell coach and speaker. One principle has always stuck with me. It's not about me, but it starts with me. And the leadership and culture and service all begins with personal responsibility. And everything I do today is rooted in that belief that, the credit union philosophy, as we all know it, that people helping people. That foundation still guides me in every decision that I make today.
No, I love that. Because we all have, no matter how you frame it up, right? We all have something inside of us that drives us. There's, and I'm not going to say higher purpose. I'm not going to say creed, or whatever, but there's something that's essentially our fuel that pushes us along. And I love how you talked about service, you talked about leadership, and I feel like everything you just said is really what credit unions are all about, right? Those things. And I think that's one of the things that I love about our industry. It's about that service. It's about leadership within our communities, showing dedication, support, being custodians of our members. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that kind of just leads me to, why I'm excited for this conversation, because of how passionate you are about those things. And so let's first start with, obviously your passion for leadership and how you approach, being a leader within Truity, but not only that, being a leader within, Oklahoma, being a leader within our industry. So let's start with that. How do you approach leadership?
From my perspective and over the years, culture doesn't start, with policy making. It starts with the mirror, right? We have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, do people perceive us the way that we believe they perceive us, right? That was one of the big things that I learned when I started working with John Maxwell probably 5 years ago, in the credit union movement. I thought I was one thing, but that really wasn't how I was perceived. And I had to stop, take note and look in the mirror and change that, quite frankly. I felt like I was the one talking in the room. I was the one driving the room, and that is not the case. As you know, in leadership, you've got to listen, you've got to learn and learn different people's, their mannerisms. If you want excellence and accountability and service, you got to model it first. I mean, that's the way it is. One of the things that we're trying to do, or I'm trying to do here within our Truity mortgage team is, we've got the development team, we've got operations, we've got our underwriting team, and then we have our servicing team. And my whole thing this year for us is to start with one team, one member, one file at a time. We don't want to try to serve in bulk. We serve one member at a time. Every file represents a real person and that's trusting us with their financial life. And I really believe in my heart when all the team members are aligned around that mindset, that consistency follows through, and that member feels like they're the only transaction that we're working on that day. And that's really important to me, regardless of whose responsibilities what, fill in the gaps for each other. And that's really something that we're trying to practice this year, is that one team, one member, one file at a time. That's something we kicked off our big meeting with last week. We bring everybody in, I cook them steaks, and we kind of kick off our year. And that was kind of our setting there. So it's real exciting for us. The other thing about leadership for me is I work for my team. I truly believe that I work for them. Nobody works for me. My job is to remove obstacles so they can do what they do best. When leaders serve the team well, the team serves the membership well. You've heard some of these big guys come out and say, if you take care of your team, they'll take care of your customers or your members, whatever that is in your light. So I'm a real believer in that. And I believe that when I get the opportunity to hire team members that go out in our communities and serve, I want to hire an entrepreneur that I can wrap in a corporate blanket. In other words, I want that spirit of entrepreneur to go out and serve in the community, do the things that are important to them, be who they need to be, but then give them the tools they need to serve our communities, our members' best interest. And that's kind of my philosophy in a nutshell when it comes to leadership, servant leadership.
No, I think that's, when, as you were saying that, right, it's, a united team performs better, right? And when, as you were kind of going through that, it reminded me of a quote. It's actually from one of my personal guilty pleasure movies that I can sit down and watch over and over and over again. Actually, whenever it's on, I find myself watching it. The movie's Drumline. The quote is,
Ring it on.
No. That would be funny. Ring it. No, it's Drumline. The quote is one band, one sound, right? And it's the reason why it's one of my favorite lines and one of my favorite things to reference. And maybe I do it jokingly, but I do love that movie a lot. It basically says, yes, we are individual, right? But there's nothing better when we're all working together to achieve that common goal. Are we actually making music, right? And music can really be putting families in homes. It could be supporting our communities. It could be providing the right type of guidance to our members, right? It can be all of those things that I just outlined. But in order for us to do that, we have to do it together, and we all individually have to be leaders, but there also really needs to be that one person in the front. I don't want to say leading the charge, but providing that rhythm that we all step to, right? So I love everything that you said, and I guess, it's, and I love that you work with John Maxwell, and trust me, I mean, I think there's not a single leader, that I know of that doesn't have one of his books. And I was actually looking over my shoulder. I know this is all audio and I know people can't see it, but I was looking over my shoulder at my bookshelf, see if I could quickly grab one of his books I have on there, but it's just too far away. So I have to ask, right? Leadership is a journey, right? Not only is it a journey, it's a path that can change as you move along in your career, in your life, etc. What was that moment in time for you that prompted you to say, all right, I need to take a step back and be better for them? What was that moment?
Yeah. So I was a producer for many years. I was producing probably $80 to $100 million a year in my prime for the credit union. We had a lot of lead generation things that we did for big companies. And my head was I was just looking forward to, spending time on the phone with the members and do things. So we created this space to where, the data entry stuff was somebody was helping me with, so I could really focus on the relationships. And, my whole philosophy became, if somebody calls you and the first question they have is, what are the rates? Then you don't have a relationship with that person. When you've done business with people over and over, you want them to say, how are your kids? Or you ask them how their kids are. And I learned that. And then I kind of got away from that for a little while. I started, pouring myself back into the volume, and trying to reach for that as opposed to the relationship. And I found myself faltering a little bit, and it wasn't being a good example to my team. And so at that given moment, when I was in meetings talking about volume, I was getting a little bit ahead of myself, if you will, a little bit arrogant on, I'm putting the volume up, so we need to get all this done and there's no questions. And I just felt myself turning into somebody I didn't want to be. And so at that point in time, I began to study John Maxwell. I wanted to find somebody I could follow that had kind of the same belief system that I had. And really, to be honest with you, I believe that what he teaches lines up with credit union philosophy. It's not about you, it's about others. And so at that given time when I was producing and being very competitive, I felt like I needed to round that off a little bit. And so at that point, I stepped back and kind of evaluated myself in that moment. Even with my leaders that I was working for and serving, I wasn't being as honorable as I should have been to them, because I had the volume and people just needed to get around me and support that. And that really wasn't the right attitude. It was about, let's fill in the gaps for each other. Let's find our strengths. And I've always been a believer in leveraging every asset. In other words, if there's something somebody else does better than me, then that's leverage them around me, right? Because there's the detail stuff I'm not good at. But the other stuff I enjoy and I'm blessed with, and that's where I thrive. And so I had to kind of back up and evaluate that, and then begin to surround myself even more with the people that fit into those places that make me a better person and that I can learn from. And I wanted someone to, some people when they lead, they want people to do what they say. Me, I want people to challenge me. But you got to get in the right frame of mind when people challenge that. And so that's what I did at that moment, is stop saying, do it my way, and stepping back a little bit and saying, okay, challenge, because that's how we're going to grow in that moment. That's how I'm going to grow as an individual. And that's how we're going to best serve our members if there was a challenge within the body of a file. So I don't know what year that was, Peter, to address, but it was a moment in time that I stepped back and said, I've got to change the way I'm looking at these things, because people aren't perceiving me the way I think they perceive me. And that was a hard place to look, my friend. But I did it, and I changed my attitude in meetings, and I changed my philosophy and how I got through phone calls or had the opportunity to have calls with members and serve them and how to solve their problems. So don't remember the exact moment in time, but I will tell you it was when I realized that people didn't perceive me, and I stepped into some additional teaching and said I need to change what I'm doing.
I love that story. Talk about, the a good character arc, right? I mean, that's you have everyone has trials and tribulations. You were vulnerable and shared that, but then you identified ways to improve, right? I say this to my team all the time, and they probably roll their eyes every time I say it, but perception's 9/10 of the law. And so
Right.
people are perceiving you one way, but you're really not that, or you really in your heart of heart know you're not that. You need to fix that, right? And especially if that perception's a negative, you got to fix it. And that's so awesome that you made that change, that conviction to improve. Now, the second part of this conversation is about relevance, right? Relevance in our industry, and in many ways, how we are as leaders can support our ability, our team's ability to be relevant in our industry. So I'd love to get your perspective on how we as leaders can support our teams, our credit unions to kind of grow and be relevant, because I think you and I can agree on this. Having been in the industry for as long as we have, all too often credit unions are just not relevant, right? And it's a struggle, and we're often forgotten upon, right? I mean, you'd be surprised how many people when I was working, at Lafayette Credit Union, I told them I worked at a credit union, Lafayette, et cetera, and they had no idea what a credit union was, right? Right? I'm sure you faced that challenge.
Oh, yes.
So how do we stay relevant, especially in this industry, this market? I mean, as leaders, we have to support, and we have to grow, and we have to push, and there's all these things that we have to do. So how do we do that?
Yeah, I think, for me, we've got this whole thing with technology. We've got to embrace the technology, but we still have to have the human touch. Okay. We talk about lead generate. We talk about CRMs. We talk about all these things, and they're all valid and important, because I will tell you, if credit union wants to compete with the large banks and the mortgage brokers, they're using all these tools because they don't have anything to start with. Okay. Where we have a database, we have membership base that we can start with. So yes, we have to embrace the technology to compete today, and keep us connected and relevant. But technology should never replace the relationship. Okay. We can be digital and we can still be deeply personable. And that's where we got to find the balance. Okay. It's you've got to find that balance. You've got to reach for both of them. We're still in the people business, Peter, and we can't get away from that. That's what credit unions are. It's people helping people. When all the technology, we're still in that people business. And I will tell you, the one differentiator for credit unions is the relationships. I did something a while back and said, look, we don't chase leads. We chase relationships. We don't follow up. We engage. Those are things that we've got to do as a credit union to stay relevant. Yeah, we can use the technical stack to reach out and send things of value to our members and keep us in front of them. But we still have to pick up that phone, and we still have to be relevant. If we lose the human touch, we're going to lose who we are as a credit union. So as I embrace technology and all the things that are coming our way to compete, I think if credit unions can find that balance of technology and human touch, I think that we will win hands down, and staying relevant will be, will come from staying engaged and bringing that value on a daily basis to our membership. That means that we've got to invest in our members and our communities and even our teams to give them those tools to do that. And when we do that, and when we do that consistently, credit union difference is going to remain strong. And that's my belief.
You use one of my favorite, terms for, for that describes leadership, consistency, right? In many ways, leaders show up every day regardless of how they slept, what's going on at home, workload, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the more consistent we are, I personally feel as though the greater success our team sees, right? It's who said, I forgot who said it. I want to say it was like Aristotle said it. But it's the idea of, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not something but a habit, right? Excellence is therefore not an accident but a habit. And I'm probably butchering that quote, and I take full responsibility for that. But that describes consistency as leadership. So intertwined with leadership. And I love that you said that.
So if I may add to that, think about leadership too, if I may add to that just a little bit. The other thing that I have started to practice is, we all go to leadership classes. We all do these things to make us the better leaders. But guess what? You don't have to be in a position to be a leader. So teach all of your team to be a leader. So when I get my minute by Maxwell in the mornings, that goes out to our entire team. I look at it and then I send it out. And so now we want to, why are we holding that back? Why are we, starving them from that? Because I don't care if you're a teller or you're a processor, whomever you are, you can be a leader from whatever chair you sit in. So I always encourage, leadership to yes, you can talk it and you can walk it, but now let's teach it. And so I think that's important too. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that I think
this is your show, buddy. This is your show.
When it becomes to leadership that we say, oh, that's where they got that, or that, we're not trying to steal anything. Andrew's not anybody special. I'm learning from somebody else and standing on their shoulders. And so you make that okay when you show them what you're looking at and what you're trying to learn from. So I think it's an important point from leadership standpoint.
And I love that. And thank you for adding that. Andrew, we're approaching time, and so we it's at that point where we need to start transitioning to the second segment. But before we do so, I'm going to keep asking this question till I'm blue in the face. It's the second and last question I always ask every single guest that comes on here. What keeps you going? What keeps driving you forward? What's your purpose? And feel free to make this as personal or professional as you like. But ultimately, what keeps pushing you forward? What's your motivation?
Peter, at the end of the day, I believe that credit unions win when we lead with service. That's our philosophy. When we serve our teams, the teams serve the members well, as I said before. The members feel the difference, and that creates that loyalty. We absolutely must embrace the technology to stay competitive and connected, but we can never forget, that we're still in the people business and relationships are our advantage. It doesn't matter whether we're at a credit union or anywhere else. Well, I'm talking about in our families as well, and our children. I have 3 boys that work in professions, and I try to coach them through there. So goodness sakes, if I were doing what I'm doing now, hopefully, I would. One of the John Maxwell things used to say, he always talked about a story, and I'll move through this quickly. But his kids would say, why don't you pay us to, his dad would say, he would ask his dad, why don't you pay us to take out the trash, Dad? He said, well, if I wanted to teach you how to be a trash man, I would do that. But I'm going to give you a book every month, and I'm going to pay you whatever that book costs. I'm going to pay you to read it. And because I want to teach you. And I was sitting in the audience, Peter, and I went, wow, I wasn't a very good dad because I wasn't thinking that way. And then I thought to myself, okay, he started that at a young age. I'm only 50 years old now. At the time, I'm older now, Peter. But at the time, I was 50 years old when I was sitting in that room. And I went, you know what? If I can give my kids 5 years advantage on where I started, 10 years advantage on where I started. They win and I win. So don't give up on it. So that's what drives me, is to pour into my children the mistakes that I made and the curves that they could avoid if they would just simply, I can pour into them what somebody didn't pour into me earlier on in life, so even though I started late with my children, the key component of that is I started. And so that's really what drives me, is showing them those curves and straightening that line out for them. And so that's mine from a personal level. The other, from a credit union level, if we stay engaged and bring real value to our members and our communities and our teams, we remain true to who we are, which I think is what we're trying to do. Credit unions will not just survive, we'll continue to matter. And that's really what we're after.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Well done. Well done. All right. So again, as I mentioned, I enjoyed this conversation, but it's time for us to transition to the second segment of the pod. The second segment is where we play Jeopardy. Sometimes we do, wrong answers only, that new game that we started playing. Although I found a new game I want to try out, like the whole this or that thing. I'm sure you guys have seen that. But anyways, today we are doing the most requested, highly anticipated, crowd favorite, the number one game that we play. In fact, anytime we play this or do this, the episode's guaranteed to be a hit. We're doing dad jokes. So, Andrew, I asked you to come prepared with 2 to 3 dad jokes. Now, what we do is we each share 2. If one of them bombs, we share the third. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the horn. You share your 2 dad jokes. Justin shares his 2 dad jokes. I wrap up with my 2 dad jokes, and then we call it a day. Sound good?
Okay. Sounds great.
All right, man. Hit me with some dad jokes.
What country's capital is growing the fastest?
What country's capital is growing the fastest? What?
Ireland. Every day it's doubling.
Good one. That was good. Good one.
I'm gonna have to give the credit where it's due, because I was helped with these. So there we go. The next one. What do you call a snowman with 6-pack?
A what?
An abdominal snowman.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. I don't know why my mind went to like Schwarzenegger or something like that, but
Mine was going like more like kegs and beer.
yeah, you're going beer.
Yeah, I was like CPAP beer.
All right, well,
Where were you with this?
yeah, sir. Justin, at least it's not even noon yet when we're recording this. Come on, man.
Like, I'm just saying, I'm excited about our events coming up.
Okay, there you go. All right, Justin, go for it.
All right. Why did the employee at the calendar company get fired?
One more time.
Why did the employee at the calendar company get fired?
Why?
He took a day off.
I hate. Oh my god, that was good. Good.
All right. Well, Valentine's Day just passed, so I'm gonna try to incorporate something there.
So where do you take? You're so.
I know. Where do you find love in a grocery store?
Where do you find love in the grocery store? Where?
I'll be there for you.
That was good. All right.
I liked it.
I'll wrap up. What do you call a line of men waiting to get haircuts?
The main line.
Nope.
The main.
A barbecue.
Okay, yeah. I get that.
Okay. All right. I feel like that one flopped, but I'll wrap up with this one. What's a lawyer's favorite drink?
I don't know.
Subpoena colada.
Yeah. That one was good.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good.
Some tuna colada. All right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed the conversation. Again, I've enjoyed getting to know you at our events, but at the Oklahoma Kieran as well. It's always good seeing you. Always have a smile on your face. So thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to sit down with us on our little pod. My friend, hope to see you soon.
All right. Enjoy what you guys do. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Justin, as always, thank you.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you, we know your time is valuable. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Acuma's On Point podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, be well, my friends.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time at the Acuma On Point podcast. If not already, be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. For more great episodes and information, be sure to visit us online at acuma.org. And to get the latest updates, head over to our LinkedIn page.